Hello and welcome to our lunchtime webinar. It's a little different time for us. It's our 15-minute webinar, and our topic today is, am I the only one who can't balance working from home? Happy New Year for those of you that are joining us for the first time this year. My name is Christina Bowser, and I am the training director here at Extended Disc. Joining me today is my ever so wonderful colleague, Wilma Stevens, senior trainer at Extended Disc. Hi, Wilma.
Hey, Christina. Okay, I love this topic. It is so relevant. And who doesn't have this on their agenda, right? So many of us are working from home. And that whole balance is that little tightrope walking act that we all perform.
Right. So before we go ahead and talk about what exactly we mean by work-life balance, and you might be surprised by what we tell you, it is being recorded. So if you miss any of it, or if you need to share it with any of your colleagues, it will be posted on our YouTube channel as well as our extendeddisc.org website. We may not be able to answer your questions live, but please go ahead and put them in the Q&A section, and I promise you we will address them either live or after the session is over. So, Wilma, what do we mean by work-life balance? Is there such a thing, or can I ever achieve it?
It's a really great question. Really, that's like a sliding scale, isn't it, right? It's a dynamic state. We have our work, we have our life. What does it really mean to be in balance, right? I guess what's in front of you? How would I define it? I guess it's, how do we blend all of that and get through our 24 hours in each day? How would you define it?
To me, balance, as long as we don't think of it as an end point, as we think of it as something that is fluid and dynamic, and just, there's no such thing as like achieving balance. It's constantly day to day. One day you might have, 95% of you devoted to work, but then the next day, you got a sick kid or a dog that, a new puppy, and then your work balance maybe is 80% or 75 or whatever. But understanding that, I think the balance is not the end point for me.
Yes, getting your arms around what's in front of you, looking at it all organically so that everything is included in the balance, right? Yeah, for sure. I'm absolutely with you. When we talk about this work-life balance, though, and talk about our working from home, I think that there's one thing I like to kind of make a subtle but significant point. I don't think we are working from home. Most of us are working with home, right? So we are one scenario in the umbrella of working with home. There is a lot of things have happened since this pandemic, when many of us have moved our office home. Adult children have come home. Some of us are parenting or becoming teachers of our kids. So lots of things have changed. So even though you have to be concerned about your setup and your officing from home, we have to take into consideration so many other things. Like, who else needs to be productive at home? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you were saying, Wilma and I were having a discussion about this, that we actually have to almost shift our paradigm, right? Whereas many of us are going into work, we have a very unique, dedicated office area or workspace that we have. And everyone there tends to have the same common goals. But when we're at home, there's a lot more distractions going on. There's a lot more unpredictability. And really, we could talk on and on about work-life balance in just a general sense, but we are all here because we are trying to figure out ways to use DISC and the DISC tools to help us approach, in this case, work-life balance. So distractions, we are all different. There's no right or wrong way to office at home. For some of us, distractions are very motivating. We just need to kind of divert ourselves for a moment and then we can refocus. Whereas some of our styles really need that, just that dedicated area where we can just focus in, not have distractions. So it's understanding that, again, just like with all disc tools or all disc styles, we are all different. We bring something different to the table, and there's no such thing as here's 10 tips for achieving work-life balance, because it's not going to be the same for all of us.
Yes. If you are working with home, one way to use your disc style or your disc skills, firstly, we've already talked about figuring out how you set up your day. If you want to really embrace the disc approach, it's a good thing to consider who else is in the house working with you. What is their disc style? Go to where they stand. Help them be successful by interacting with them in a fashion that works for them. That's one thing right off the bat.
Yeah, and oftentimes that's, let's be honest, it's a little bit more challenging, because one of the things I, as a disc trainer, often say is when we are in our most comfortable space, and oftentimes that is our home space, we don't feel the need to make as many adjustments, because it's like, basically, who I am. And it takes energy to adjust. So thereby, we often don't make that effort. And what I think Wilma's kind of reminding us to do is sometimes that effort, making that effort to remember, my spouse or my child, works differently than me, or learns different than me, or communicates different than me. Just that kind of gentle nudge to yourself and to make those adjustments, really, in the end, often we say, gets you to your endpoint much faster. So if you need that kind of quiet space, if you address and interact with your family member in a way that they respond positively to, now you have that time to go and focus and do what you need to do.
Yes, and I think you've made a good point when you talk about the value of the interaction as well. Most people say family is my most important relationship. So try harder, everybody. Get home and try harder, double down. The other thing I think that we want to add in there is, we don't have the routine of going into the office. And what also can hit you is that procrastination piece, right? And I think that just the weight of the pandemic, we can be sidelined with other worries, finance, health, your job, how your family's doing, vacation, like where's that break? All of those kind of things. One of the things that we talk about here in our tools that can be supportive to help you is to look at some of these things, like in the self-study workbooks, for instance. There's a section on tips on self-care, for instance. They talk about your office, getting a space that works for you. A lot of us in March just threw together our office space, and we've just kind of stuck with that, and maybe it's time to have a reckoning. Is this really, are there some little things I could do for this office space to make it better for me? I'm not sure.
And if you've never seen our remote worker self-study workbook, which everything is a mouthful today, don't worry, because what's great is for you and your clients, you don't have to take or retake, I should say, the extended disc questionnaire. What's great is you can just reorder the remote worker self-study workbook based on the results taking the questionnaire at one point in time. So I highly recommend, if you haven't looked at the remote worker self-study workbook, reach out to us at Extended Disc. We can send you a sample. Or if you are someone who can have access to our client resource site, you can get a sample of it there, or better yet, go into your Think's admin account and run a copy for yourself. Do it on yourself. I mean, you can clearly see Wilma and I are working from home. So, we don't often get as excited as we probably should, because there's so many extended disc reports that constantly come out, which is great for you as our clients, because there's pretty much a report for everything you need. But when this remote work self-study workbook came out, Wilma and I got quite excited about it. It really kind of hit home for us and made us really think, hey, I'm a disc trainer. I'm supposed to work really, make my adjustments all the time and be very conscientious, right? Not so much. We tend to sometimes cruise on our style because it's just comfortable for us. And then you put ourselves in our home setting, forget it, So it was a kind of a good wake up call, as I would say.
One of the things I would say about these tools, for instance, the self-study workbook, it is robust. There is a lot in there. And right off the bat, I would say start small. Pick one thing. Don't burden yourself with 1,000 things to add to your to-do list. Pick one thing that you want to action. Start working on it. Maybe get an accountability partner, somebody maybe even in your house, to say, hey, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you help me? If you see me doing X, can you help me redirect me to Y? And that start small, get the accountability partner. All those things will help you make some behavioral changes. And I will tell you, small changes can have a big impact, like starting your day at 9 o'clock every day, or at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, like those types of systems build upon each other. And that's what we're really looking for.
Yeah, and then just to kind of build off of what Wilma is talking about, of course, there's no right fit for everyone, right? But we wanted to kind of give you some possible tips that you can feed off, anything to kind of motivate yourself or motivate your clients or motivate your employees. Some will work better based on your style. So, carve out a workspace, if you're that
flexible.
person that,
right?
Be flexible, exactly.
Because we both have had our adult children move back home at some point during this, and carve out a workspace, but you might have to share.
Or change up, as Wilma says, our workspaces may have to change up because, we have one office, and if you and your spouse are both working, who gets priority? But for some of us, we like that steady knowing, a place that is mine, that I can put my stuff down and that's it. So I carved out my workspace in the guest room. It does have a lot of my kids coming home from college boxes, but I have carved out my workspace. Some of you would prefer to be, right in the kitchen or dining area where you can actually continue to interact with family members. But think about what is a motivating workspace for you. You heard Wilma talk about setting schedules, for some of us, getting that, knowing that I should start at 9 o'clock is very motivating to me. Not for everyone. Wilma, you talked a really great thing about, when it comes to taking breaks and exercising and eating. I loved what you said about exercise. Do you want to share that?
I think sometimes when we say the word exercise, it can be off-putting for some people. And it's really not about exercising. It's about movement, right? If you get stuck at your desk all day, that's not really energizing. It's very recommended to set pushback, like push back from your desk, go out for a walk. Exercise, great. If you're an exercise person and you're on the habit of exercising, we salute you. This is awesome. But you can even make it a smaller thing, movement, walk, go tend your garden and weed it. That's movement.
And don't forget to, as challenging as it is for some of us, be flexible and be forgiving of yourself. Flexibility, again, for some of us, it's more challenging based on our style. Some of us, it's, flexibility is the name of the game. But again, this doesn't recognize your ability to do something. It recognizes your preference. So knowing that, flexibility and chaos is not your preferred environment, if you're just more consciously aware of that and you prepare for it or perhaps even practice for it, you'll be more successful in, being able to manage that environment. Because remember, ultimately, why we're here is to understand how DISC supports how we do things. And in this case, how do we better manage home and work? And it helps us to explain the why and how, but it's up to us to actually do it.
Yes,
Any
for
last
me, the
thoughts?
biggest point, yes, for me, the biggest point is try your best. If you have a rough day, recommit the next day. Be very forgiving. These are challenging times for all of us. The now normal we're all figuring out, and it's ongoing. So be nice to you, and also be nice to everyone else under your same roof. It will work better for all of you. Thank you for participating and sticking with us today.
And we do have another webinar tomorrow. It's our 1 hour, what is DIS&C? It just is great if you need to kind of a quick refresher on how to present the DIS styles in your DIS session. So you do earn a recertification unit to HRCI or SHRM if you need it, but feel free to join us tomorrow. Thank you guys all again. Have a great rest of your day.